now to the Prime Minister, Malcolm Turnbull.
Now, I'm here with the Treasurer and the Minister for Energy to talk about the outcomes of the meetings we had with the energy retailers, together with the Deputy Prime Minister. But before we move on to that, I want to restate how Australia welcomes the new and harsh sanctions imposed on North Korea by the Security Council, supported by China and Russia, as you know. The North Korean regime's conduct is as illegal as it is reckless, as provocative as it is dangerous. It threatens the peace and stability of the region, of the world, and they have to come to their senses. Every economic pressure that can be imposed must be imposed, and Australia is playing its part. And while every nation should be united in bringing this rogue regime to its senses, we note especially the importance of China's role as North Korea's major economic partner. China has unique leverage, and we welcome, in particular, China's support for these strong and much more harsh sanctions imposed by the Security Council. The regime must come to its senses and stop its illegal provocations. Now, let me move on now to the meeting we have just had with the energy retailers who provide a vital, essential service to over 8 million households and businesses. Now, what we have sought to do is to cut a better deal for Australian families. And we have some very good outcomes from the meeting. More work to do, but very good progress, and I'll come to that in a moment. But it's important to understand this is just part of our program of supporting energy affordability and reliability. One of the biggest factors in the increase in energy prices recently has been a very big rise in the price of gas, as you know. We have taken decisive action with the gas industry to limit exports to ensure that there is enough gas for the domestic market on the East Coast. That was a very tough call, very strong action on the part of the government. We've already seen spot prices, or prices for gas in the spot market, come down in response to that. In terms of a medium-term response, we have also, as you know, Josh has taken action to abolish limited merits reviews, which basically is designed to prevent the companies that own the poles and wires, the network companies, from gaming the system and appealing against the decisions of the regulator as to how much they can charge for those assets. And of course, we've got the ACCC, at Scott's direction, investigating the way in which the retailers are operating in the electricity market, and also, of course, examining the gas market. We've also made important reforms to the way in which the gas pipeline market operates, and Josh can say a little bit more about that if you wish to follow that up. So right across the board we're taking action, and on the longer term we are going to build the largest single energy storage in the Southern Hemisphere. Snowy Hydro 2.0, as you know, will be the biggest battery in the Southern Hemisphere, renewable energy, making renewables reliable. So this is a comprehensive approach. Now, with the retailers, we know that millions of Australian families are paying more than they need for their electricity. They are on plans that have run out, discounted plans that have run out, and they're now on a standard offer and paying too much for their electricity. They've got people that are on the wrong plans. That the complexity of the various offers makes it very difficult for many families and businesses to understand what is the right deal for them. Now, we are determined to protect those Australian families, and we're determined to ensure that they pay no more than they need to for their electricity, that they will always have the best plan for them. So we've met with the retailers today, and I can confirm now what has been agreed at the meeting. The retailers have agreed that they will write to their customers who've reached the end of a discounted plan and outline in plain English alternative offers that are available. This could be included in the next household bill, and would include directing them to the Australian Energy Regulator's Energy Made Easy comparison website or another objective, independent comparison website. They're going to outline to the government and to the ACCC the steps they're taking as individual companies to help customers to better offers, particularly what they're doing for families and individuals under a hardship program, including a commitment that those customers will not lose any benefit or discount for late payment. They've committed to producing clear, user-friendly fact sheets on terms, late payment penalties, early termination payments, and to work with us and the Australian Energy Regulator on key components of this, including comparator rates. This is very important, that people can understand what the alternatives are. They've agreed to regularly report to the Australian Energy Regulator of how many customers are on offers where the discount period has expired. And, very importantly, they have supported us expediting a rule change, and this can be done within around 6 weeks, under the National Electricity Law, which will require a clear disclosure at the end of a discount period or a benefit period of the dollar impact of not doing anything based on past consumption. So what that means is that they will be required, when a customer is coming to the end of their discounted plan or their benefit plan, to write to them and say, you are coming to the end of this plan. If you don't do anything, you'll go back onto the standard rate. Based on your past consumption, that would mean you would be paying X dollars more. So, and here are some alternatives. In other words, we are determined to provide that they provide as much information as they can to the customers to ensure the customers can make those choices. So this will ensure that Australian families, thousands of Australian families, hopefully millions of Australian families, better informed, will then be paying less for their electricity because they will be on the plan that works best for them. Now, they're going to report back to me by the 18th of August on progress, and they will hold a subsequent meeting with us later in the month. So I'll now ask the Treasurer to talk about the work he is doing, and then Josh will continue, and then we'll take some questions.
Thanks, Prime Minister. In this year's budget, in response to what are flat household incomes and the struggles that many Australian families are presented with, we made two very important pledges, and that was we were guaranteeing the essentials that Australians rely on, and the action we've taken, whether it's on Medicare, on schools funding, on the NDIS, in all of these areas, we're following through on that. And we also said we'd be putting downward pressure on rising costs of living, and that was the business of today's meeting. This is the Turnbull government following through on the commitments that we announced in this year's budget. And a key part of that has been to maximise the pressure that exists for energy retailers to ensure that millions of Australians get a better deal on their electricity prices. That was the outcome of today's meeting, that we are putting millions of Australians in the position to get a better deal on electricity prices. Now, the strongest markets are the markets where the consumer has the maximum possible strength in that market. And the tools that the Prime Minister and the Energy Minister, and I commend Josh on the work he's done here, the tools that we're putting in place here for customers to be stronger in the market, to take control over things that I know Australians feel frustrated about, that they have no control over, and that they're at the mercy of big energy companies. What we are doing here is giving them more power back on their power prices. And I think that is one of the key issues that need to be addressed. Consumers having more opportunity to get a better deal, but also better understand how they're using energy themselves and how they can reduce their energy bills and have the tools and the decisions that they can make to give effect to that. Now, this is why I asked, as part of the Prime Minister's energy plan, to get the ACCC, our competition watchdog, to make sure that these tools and these pressures were available in this market to give households the best possible deal.
Thanks. Josh.
Thank you, Prime Minister. This is a very significant and substantive set of reforms to come out of a meeting today with companies that represent some 8 million Australian households who they provide an essential source of power to. Now, the Australian Energy Regulator has told us that an Australian household can save more than $1,000 a year by changing contracts or changing retailers. But at the same time, the Australian Energy Market Commission has told us that 50% of households have not changed retailers or contracts in the last 5 years. So what the Prime Minister has been able to achieve today is a commitment from these companies to, one, providing better information to consumers and families, telling them when their discount period has ended. This information is secondly going to be provided in a more comparable way so that they can better compare the different offers available in the marketplace. And thirdly, a significant concession from the companies to assist vulnerable consumers. And consumers now won't be subject to losing all of their discount for a late payment if they are a hardship customer. That's going to help thousands of Australian families. It's a significant set of reforms. It builds on what the Prime Minister has already achieved in other areas, and there is still more work to be done.
Prime Minister, was there a discussion on the clean energy target, given that the energy companies say they need certainty for investment to bring more power online and bring down prices?
We certainly did discuss energy policy, but the focus of the meeting, as you can imagine, was on the actions that we're talking about here, which is protecting consumers right now. I mean, when you tackle, look, our approach. Yeah, hang on. When you look at the energy sector, there are short-term measures, there are medium-term measures, there are long-term measures. Clearly, a certain investment climate is required for long-term investment. We totally understand that, and we've already committed to 49 of the 50 Finkel recommendations, as you know, and Josh has been handling that. There are medium-term measures. The abolition of the limited merits review as an example. That's not going to have an impact tomorrow, but it will have an impact over the next few years. Then there are short-term measures. The price of gas is absolutely in the here and now, and this is another one. Australian families are hurting now. They want protection and support now. They want their government to stand up for them now. They want their government to ensure that these big companies look after them and do a better job of looking after the consumers and the families that want to know, to be empowered, as the Treasurer has said, to be empowered with the information that their plan has come to an end and that what their alternatives are and what the cost of doing nothing is. Look, it is everybody is time poor, and the truth is that retailers benefit from customers' inertia. They benefit from people not picking the best plan. We are determined to ensure that they do the right thing by their customers, that they care for their customers, and ensure our goal is that no Australian family should be paying more for their electricity than they need. In other words, whatever the best deal for them is, they should be on it. And we're taking these very strong measures with the retailers to ensure, so far as is possible, that that can be done.
Your Energy Minister said that this was significant and substantial reforms, when it's really just a tinker with consumer laws. Wouldn't a significant and substantial reform be actually having an energy policy?
Well, thanks for the editorial, Michelle.
Can you give a guarantee that decisions will be made on the long term, in other words, about the clean energy target, by the end of this year?
Well, we are working through it very carefully. We've got some important inputs into this, not least of which is the work being done by AEMO on what is going to be the gap in baseload power, dispatchable baseload power, in the future, and we're expecting that report on the 1st of September. Look, this is a very complex area, and you can see there is not one single silver bullet here to solve these challenges. There are short-term measures which we are taking. I'm not saying, when I say short-term, I'm not saying that they're not going to be enduring, but they are measures that will have an impact right now. I mean, if as a result of the commitments we have today, and this will undoubtedly happen, you will see families being alerted to the fact that they're paying more for their electricity than they need to. And they will get onto the right plan and they'll be paying less for their electricity. And that will happen now. That's an example of immediate action, or action that will have an immediate effect. Yeah, Phil, yeah.
Just on those short-term measures, are there other things that were discussed at the meeting that the retailers are considering will come back, or what you announced today, is that the sum of it?
Well, I'll ask John. There's a lot of work going on, but the main focus of the meeting naturally was on the matters that I've discussed. But you know, we are in Well, Josh, I'll ask you to touch on that.
There was a host of other issues that we are going to go back and work with them on, and that's why we're going to have another meeting, and I think this will be an ongoing dialogue. But really, what we want to put in place is the ability for consumers to have an informed choice so that they can move to the retailer or the contract that gives them the best possible deal. You see, right now, the biggest discount, it doesn't necessarily mean the best possible deal. Because if you get a 20% discount on a 20-cent kilowatt hour price of electricity, that's a better deal than getting a 30% discount on a 30-cent kilowatt hour price of electricity. And it's that level of complexity which customers are currently not aware of, and they are effectively getting shortchanged.
I mean, look, there are many Australian households that are paying hundreds of dollars more for their electricity right now than they need to. Up to the difference between what it would be the right plan for them and what they're paying can be as much as $1,500 for average household. So it is, you know, this is an area where we have to protect the consumer, and we have taken the action today, as we do every day, to protect Australian families. We are determined to protect them and ensure that they are not paying any more for electricity than they need to. Please, James.
On that point about short-term action, the experts have been discussing behaviour by electricity retailers for months. The Grattan Institute produced a report in March, a comprehensive report, going into all of the detail of what electricity retailers are doing and the impact on consumers. That was March. You say you're taking immediate action. Why has it taken you 5 months since the Grattan report to call a meeting of electricity retailers to sort this out?
Well, we've taken action. We've taken action immediately following that report and other reports. Josh, do you want to summarise some of that?
Obviously, with the ACCC, which the Treasurer instigated, which is a much more broad-ranging inquiry, which is also looking at the issues of vertical integration as well as profit margins. And as you know, the Grattan report talks specifically about the Victorian market, where they saw profit margins of 22%, which could be double or triple what comparable retailers were doing in other countries like the UK. So we got onto that straight away, but we can't afford to wait till next June to get the final ACCC report. That is why the Prime Minister has called in the retailers and had this very frank discussion today.
Prime Minister, do you have any...
To ask James, yeah.
A little bit more detail on one of the things you've said. Retailers are writing to their customers who are on plans that have expired and saying, hey, you can get a better offer here. How many people does that actually affect? Like, how many people are on these expired plans?
It's a very large number. Josh, do you want to...
Well, they represent 8 million customers, the people we met today, and the bulk of those would have been on plans that have actually expired. So they will be contacting most of their consumer base, their customer base, to let them know now what alternative offers are available and then put them in touch with the, as the Prime Minister said, the comparable website. So this is a significant course of action on behalf of the companies. We thank them for the constructive manner in which the discussion was held today, but they now, as a result of the Prime Minister's discussion, taken on board these new activities that they'll undertake.
There's about 1 million households on standing offer arrangements right now. over 1 million households on standing offer arrangements.
PM, you said this is very significant, obviously, but most of the things that we've been hearing about right now are about voluntary changes by the companies. Is there anything you're doing today that involves legislation where Parliament may need to approve it, or is there anything you're doing that may need approval from the states in order to take effect? Is there anything being legally enforced on these companies?
Number 5, the actual one about requiring these companies to provide the details about the fact that the discount offer has ended, that will require a rule change. That will be done through the AEMC. We can approach the AEMC to do that, and with the support of the industry, that can be done in an expeditious manner. So it doesn't need, the advice to me, the support of the states. It doesn't need federal legislation. The AEMC, as you know, is sovereign within this domain and has the ability to make a rule change, which has already indicated that it's broadly supportive of.
So my question is, why not take tougher action by law if
this is law? We are talking about the national electricity law here. This is a. But what we've secured, David. Well, David, this is a legal change that will require them to make these disclosures and provide the information. So basically, they will be required to write to you and say, you know, dear Mr. Crowe, you're coming to the end of your plan. If you don't do anything, you'll go onto the standing offer, and that would mean that based on your consumption over the last year, you would have, if you'd been on that standing offer over the last year, it would have cost you X dollars more. So you should renew your plan or look at some alternatives, refer you to a comparative website. It is designed to prompt the customer, you in this case, to focus on the issue, and you know, and of course, people will once they realise how much it is going to cost. But of course, you know, unless it's drawn to their attention, many of us, with busy lives, don't pay attention to it. So, but this is. But hang on, look, please, hang on. Just. All right, you all shout at once. Just to have one at a time. Well, okay, let's complete. Can we complete energy? We'll complete energy, and then we can move on to some other matters.
Do you get that from the electricity companies that they will not reduce discounts, because there are examples all across business where discounts are changed? You're asking them to give up discounts or encourage them to other firms. Will not a logical thinking electricity company think, I will reduce my discounts?
It is, the important thing is, well, there was one retailer that doesn't actually have a discount in the sense that they have one deal they offer to all of their customers, which you know, they say is very attractive because people can understand exactly what they're offering. So they all have different approaches. The important thing is what is the best deal available for a particular customer, given their usage. You know, everyone uses electricity, every household and business uses electricity in a somewhat different way. So it's important, but it's important that they get the best deal for them.
Can I add to that, PM? Can I just add to that for a second? Complexity and inertia are the big energy companies' friend when it comes to earning higher profits out of electricity consumers. And what we're doing today is to ensure there is less complexity, and working on this inertia issue. It's not unlike what we see in other large regulated sectors that I or Josh or the Communications Minister, former and now Prime Minister, have been responsible for. There are a lot of similarities here, but this is an initial outcome from what was a very good meeting, and as Phil, I think, was asking, or James was, there is a lot more that is still being discussed. And the consumer empowerment about control over their own data to get a better deal is a big part of that as well. So there's a lot more work to be done here, but the work that has been delivered on today will mean that millions of Australians will be in a better position to get a better deal.
Prime Minister, is there a concession here that the privatisation of electricity assets has actually resulted in higher prices, not lower prices, as originally promised by many state governments?
Oh, look, I think that's a question that many have raised and many have discussed. Our focus is in the here and now, dealing with the retailers we have today, to ensure that Australian consumers, Australian families get the best deal and are paying no more for the electricity than they need to today. It's an interesting question. Look, can I say to you that probably the most rapacious electricity company in Australia has been the ones owned by the Queensland government, and they have, in fact, they've had to, as you know, they had to give a direction to them to change their behaviour, but they were absolutely gaming the system. This is state-owned, state government-owned generators were gaming the system to maximise profit at the expense of consumers. Now we'll just take one more. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
How helpful was President's colleagues at Prince Obama getting that?
Look, I'm not going to run a commentary on that. I just want to repeat the illegality, the recklessness is that of the North Korean regime. Just let's be very clear about this. They are the ones that are threatening the peace of the region. They are the ones that are acting illegally, contrary to numerous UN Security Council resolutions. The threats to the peace of the region are coming from Pyongyang. Now, this regime its conduct is illegal, it's reckless, it's provocative, it's dangerous, and it threatens the peace of the region, the peace of the world. And the global community, led by the Security Council, including China and Russia, are all united in seeking to bring the maximum economic pressure on North Korea to bring them to their senses without conflict. A conflict would be shattering. It would have catastrophic consequences. We all understand that. The critical thing is that this dangerous regime comes to its senses. I'm pleased, we welcome the resolution of the UN Security Council, and we obviously support it and will implement those sanctions and others. But let's be very clear about this. The fault in this area, the wrongdoing, is that of the North Korean government. They are the ones who are in breach of UN Security Council resolutions. They are the ones that are acting illegally. They are the ones that are threatening the peace of the region and the world. Thank you very much.